Hello collectors, today is another tutorial video. I just recently reviewed this CM's model, CM's brand of this, I can't even remember, I just reviewed this the other day. It's a Lancia Beta Monte Carlo, there it is. Okay, and I was complaining about the riding stance. You know, it's way too high for a race car, a road racing car. It's not a rally car. And so this model was very expensive, so I wanted it to look nice, but I didn't want to destroy it. But these old CMs are press fit together. Historically, I would say, you know, you should just drill it apart, but then you have to glue the thing back together, and it just doesn't look so cool. So I pretty much made my own tools, discovered my own way to remove these wheels without, you know, having to take the thing apart. This will not work for Hot Wheels or Matchbox because they have, you know, pressed axle ends. It's only for the type of wheels that have all plastic there and it's pressed onto a friction axle. Okay, so you can see now I've drilled out the holes and this thing sits actually lower than it probably should, but I like it that way. It's a road racing car. I want that thing to sit flat. So we have 3 Kyoshos spinning around it, which I feel should probably be riding lower as well. I know for sure this Calisonic is riding way too high. When I look at the review of that video, you know, that's supposed to be lowered a couple inches. I don't know about these classic Porsches, to be honest with you, but I have a suspicion they're supposed to be lower than that, being, you know, Le Mans type racers. So we're going to try a couple different tools. So the first tool I've been using in the past is something most of you guys probably won't buy, but I'll show you anyways. If you buy a cheap airbrush, or really any kind of airbrush, it comes with this tool to remove the inside nozzle so you can clean it out. I bought a whole bunch of cheap airbrushes, like $10 airbrushes off AliExpress. They're not worth it, by the way. They fall apart. Anyways, they came with all these tools, so this thing automatically had a slot, and I modified it to fit you know, the wheel well of a diecast car a little bit better. As you can see, it's a little bit too big. It might work, maybe not, I don't know, maybe it'll work. But I just took my extra one, cut down the extra edges, and then I sanded it down a little bit so it's got a little bit of a chamfer, I suppose that's the word I'm looking for. Sorry, I'm trying to focus. There we go. So the reason why you want to have it thinner or tapered to the front is the goal is to actually jam it in here and force the plastic wheel off of the axle end. So hold on here, let me back up this thing, get this out of the way. We'll start with this red one. Let me get a better light angle here. I'm going to show you some cheaper alternatives, but I'll just show you how effective this is. So I'm just going to jam it in this gap and then pry that thing off. Now here's the issue. You're going to reach a point where it's going to probably start to bend the axle. So you now have to back this thing up with something else to pry it further. So what I've been using are just some pointed tweezers. So once I get a little bit of, oh well, you know what, it actually just came off. But sometimes if the axle is really deep inside the wheel, I would jam the tweezers behind this steel tool. So imagine the wheel is still on there, of course. And then I'll jam this in there, and then I would push the tweezers in so the metal thing has more space to pry the wheel off even further. But this Kyosho has such a small amount of grip on the axle, I didn't even need to bother. Okay, so that's one way to go about it, but that means you have to buy an airbrush, and I'm gonna guess most of you guys don't care to do that. Also, a micro quadcopter prop remover is very similarly shaped, although and those are meant to, you know, take props off of the motors of a quadcopter. Alright, but you probably don't want to buy one of those either. So today I went and made a couple of new tools. This is just a key, you know, a bunch of old keys. Now keys are made of brass, so they're really easy to shape. You could shape them with, you know, a file, sandpaper. I shaped this one with a bench grinder, but you know, brass is so soft I put it into a vise, and I used a hacksaw blade on this one. Hold on. You know, I put it in a vise. I put a hacksaw blade in there to make a groove. I actually cut it like 2 or 3 times. Just enough that I could then get a file in there. This is like a diamond coated hobby file or something, I'm not sure. A jewelry file. And then it widened that gap. Or you could get some, you know, little micro files, mini files, you know, from one of those dollar stores or like Harbor Freight or any hardware store. They sell these in sets. And then you could file that apart pretty easily. So that's what's going on there. And then I actually made 2 because I had a bunch of keys for some old locks. I thought originally to put it on this side, but then, you know, there's already brass missing. It's not consistent, right? So I decided to use the actual handle side, and I cut off the rest of the handle of the key. And then I chamfered it again because what I'm trying to do is, hold on, I'm going to get this one out, is I'm trying to jam the tip in there behind the wheel, and then I'm trying to push it down so I'm forcing the wheel off the axle. There we go, nice and easy, right? So the key is actually better than this tool here because look at the thickness difference. So with this much thickness, there's a better chance you don't need to, you know, slide some tweezers behind it to fill in the gap. So keys, I mean, who doesn't have an old set of keys that they don't use? But the reason why I made 2 is if I jam one in and the axle grip is so long, I could take a second one and jam it behind the first one, and then I have double spreading action, right? So that's why. But it looks like I'll only need to use 1 key. Alright, so here's another even cheaper method if you don't have a spare key. This is just a steel rod I had laying around, but you could probably just use a nail, a thick nail, and you could either hammer the nail against an anvil, because this mild steel will deform under the weight of a hammer, or I had a big bench vise, and I put this thing into a vise, and then I used a mallet to tighten the vise. You know, slamming the vise tighter and tighter with a mallet puts a lot of pressure on this piece of steel. So I did that 2 or 3 times with the vise, and you know, you can even see the teeth gripping of the vise. But then I ended up sanding it down a little bit smoother, so again I have this edge. You know, I start off small, and then it's going to end up thick, so I can pry it off. So let's get this evildoer Calsonic here. Look at that. What was Kiyosha thinking making that? It looks like an off-road truck. Alright, so now this wheel gap is way in there. Oh, maybe that's not going to work. It's so deep in there. So unfortunately, this is not thin enough. I need to taper that further. Let's try this white Porsche here. Alright, it'll work on this one because it's such a gap. So, pry it in. And try to wiggle the wheel off. Well, I'm thinking this nail isn't tapered enough. Well, maybe it'll work. Hold on. I do think it moved, but I also think it bent the plastic of the wheel. Alright, so now I have it really jammed up in there. So this is a case where there's too much length here. The wheel is gripping a lot of the axle. So I might have to, again, use some tweezers behind this thing. So I'll put this down. I'll put some tweezers back in there, and then I'll put this nail thing in again, and then pry it further. Let's see. There it goes. Alright, so you'll see on this one, there's a lot more axle going into the wheel. So, not too much damage to the plastic. Alright. So, I'm going to try this key one back on this one again. Try to get that groove centered. Alright. Yeah, the key is much easier. Maybe because I have this angle. Make note of that angle. Maybe it's 20 degrees, 15 or 20 degrees or something like that. but that was just a lot easier. I kind of feel like this is not thin enough. I guess if I made it thinner and made that groove even longer, it might be easier to use. But you know, the reason why I tried steel is because it's very strong. It's much stronger than brass. But I guess there's just not much force holding these wheels on, so it seems like this brass is perfectly strong to remove 1/64 scale wheels. Alright, so let's get back to this Calisonic Nissan here. We'll try the key one again. Is too big, right? So I'm going to have to go to my old original idea of this guy. Yeah, alright. So see, I got that gap and not enough leverage. So again, I'm going to go back to the tweezers. I want to get the tweezers around the axle and tighten it around the axle. Then I should be able to pry the wheel off. Yep. Alright. So let's do one more, and then I'm going to show you the little hobby drill I've mentioned many times in the past. It's made by Tamiya, and it's a very slow speed battery, like AA battery powered drill. So you can't really blow through the plastic like you would with, say, a real drill, like a DeWalt drill. You'll just tear right through the plastic. So hobby drills spin very slow, so you can control it. Alright, so I got a little bit of a gap here. I'm just trying not to break off the mirrors of this Nissan here. Get the tweezers, there we go. Alright, so pry tools. For me, you know, this thing, I think I should probably actually taper the end a little further. This one and the key, for me, are my favorites. But certain models, I guess, you know, a thinner piece is better, as you saw on the Calisonic. Okay, oh, just a mental note, the grooves. Hot Wheels runs 0.7 millimeter axles, but again, you can't use these on Hot Wheels because the end of the axle is trapping the wheel. But these Kyoshos seem to be running around a 1 millimeter, and the very largest one I've ever seen is on a Chorokyu. This Chorokyu is running 1.3 millimeter axles. Possibly UCC Coffee might be running something this thick, but it seems like mostly it's 1 millimeters, you know. So, but you know, I love Chorokyus. Okay, now where's that drill? Let me get a better angle. It's kind of big. So this actually is a hobby kit. It's, you know, any moron like me or a 3-year-old child can put this together. You literally just take some gears off of a plastic screw, pop the motor in, snap the two halves together, and it's done. But here's the battery. I'm just running 2 AA rechargeables in there. I've never had to replace these actually, but I don't really drill stuff all the time. But make note of this speed. That's full speed. I guess you can actually, there's not much modulation unfortunately, but at full speed you can almost see the flutes. So let me show you some drilling action here. Here's a piece of, I don't know, plastic box. See, that's full speed. I'm pushing it relatively hard, and it finally went through. This is like a 1 millimeter thick drill bit. Now, had this been like a DeWalt drill, I probably would have blown through that so fast that it would have made made chips on the backside, and it, you know, made it a lot worse. But you can obviously spin it really slow. Okay, so first culprit. Let's go back to this Calisonic here. Now, even though this is really slow, I find that you don't want to apply too much pressure because this plastic's quite soft. But anyways, I'm going to put it in the axle hole. I also find that sometimes the hole wants to wander, so very often I have to come back and like drill in a direction more like this way, because for some reason it wants to go over to the right side. But okay, let's see. Sorry, I gotta do the same on the other side though. So that's like a little more than half a drill bit in depth. So let me find one of those Calisonic wheels here. There we go. Much better than, see the back stance? That's looking far better to me than the back, right? So that's actually pretty good. I'm going to leave it at that. Let me just pop this wheel back on. You notice the knurling here. It's not, this one is actually like knurled. It's not just straight flutes. So I find with knurled wheels, I find if you like twist or wiggle the wheel as you push it on, it tends to want to go on easier. Maybe a little more. Okay. There you go. Now that's a race car stance to me. Alright. Let's do the same here as the before. I'm going to try to do like half a drill bit of depth. Yeah, that's about halfway. Maybe a little more, but... So you really don't need to apply too much pressure. But yeah, it's pleasantly slow enough, again, to not just drill right through that thing in 1 second. Alright, rear stand's looking good again. It actually might be dragging against the diecast now. Oop, my bad. So a little wiggling. There we go, the rear one went on a lot better. Alright, you get the drift. I'm not going to make you watch me drill these things apart. So, let me get all these tools out of the way. Stupid hacksaw blade. And let's get these things spinning back up here the way they should have come from the brands. Oh, well, this is weird. This thing is wobbling quite a bit. Because maybe the... Oh, I think the base is sticking out. Yeah, you know, there's a little protruding thing for the stand. And now the stance is so low, and this base is sticking out past the casting. Probably because the interior is holding it up. I see. Well. Alright, so I'm going to have to modify that. Because it just, now the wheels aren't even touching the ground, right? So I got some electronics clippers. That's the nice thing about a plastic base. Easy to modify and also lighter weight for shipping costs. Alright, not the prettiest, but let's see if it at least sits on... Alright, that's better. Alright, so... Okay, so hopefully, if you have a key, maybe a hacksaw blade, perhaps a miniature file, or I do think you could maybe hammer the end of a nail, but you just got to get a much shallower draft angle. Mine, you know, I think basically the roundness here was colliding with the casting. Had I nailed more of this, hammered more of this flat, maybe it would have worked better. But, you know, nails are cheap enough that you can make 20 different shapes and it won't cost you an arm and a leg. And then again, the little airbrush tool or, you know, a prop remover of a quadcopter could work. And then you might want to invest in just some straight tweezers in case you need the back end off of it. So, alright, well, hopefully, if any of you guys get some models with bad riding stances, seems like Kyosho has that issue often. You know, as long as the base is made of plastic, it's relatively easy to drill out. I guess you could even do it with a metal base. It just might take longer, you know. But die-cast metal is a relatively soft material. It's not like it's stainless steel or anything like that. It's pretty soft. I am now rambling on, so I will leave you be. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps you out. See ya.